On a freezing Christmas Eve, the silence of the night was shattered by the desperate cry of a little girl. "Please, don't hurt my mom." In that instant, a lonely millionaire's world collided with a truth darker than the winter sky. What he found beneath a park bench was not just two shivering children clinging to each other for warmth, but a plea for hope, for safety, for a future free from fear. As he reached out, his life changed forever, and so did theirs. This is not just a story of survival. It is a story of courage, of love that refuses to break, and of the unexpected families we sometimes find in the storm. If you believe in second chances and the healing power of compassion, then you are in the right place. Stay with us, and don't forget to subscribe to Hidden Echo Stories, because the next story might be the one your heart needs most. The wind clawed across Minneapolis, sweeping the streets in icy sheets, as if the city itself wanted to erase the footsteps of its people. Snow hissed against the glass of tall buildings, muffling the laughter of distant parties and the hum of cars racing home for Christmas Eve. Yet, amid the cold, one man drove slowly, not rushing to anywhere in particular. Alex Carter's SUV glided along the frozen road like a ship without a harbor. For years, he had been surrounded by wealth, by servants eager to please, by acquaintances who admired his name on glossy magazine covers. But that night, he felt nothing except the weight of silence pressing in on him, a silence louder than any boardroom debate. His phone buzzed with seasonal greetings, from lawyers, investors, politicians. They were the kind of messages people sent out of habit rather than love. He ignored them, letting the screen dim, as if refusing light could somehow make the ache in his chest disappear. He remembered a time when the holidays had been filled with warmth, when his daughter would dance around the Christmas tree, her laughter rising above the crackle of the fireplace. That was before his empire expanded, before he lost touch with the people who mattered most, before the world outside, his mansion turned into glass walls keeping everyone at a distance. Driving past Lake Willow, Alex's thoughts were interrupted by something fragile, something nearly erased by the howl of the wind. It was not the echo of carols or the bark of a distant dog. It was a sob, thin, cracked, carrying a desperation that pierced straight into him. He slowed, his grip tightening on the wheel. He thought at first it was the wind playing tricks, but then he heard it again. A child's voice. He pulled his car to the side, his heart beating faster than it had during any of his business negotiations. The snow swallowed sound, yet he caught it clearly this time. A plea, broken and terrified. "Please do not hurt my mom." Every part of Alex stilled. He stepped out of the SUV, boots sinking into powdery snow that rose above his ankles. The cold lashed against his skin, yet it was not the temperature that made him shiver. His eyes scanned the shadows, searching for a shape, for a presence. The city lights twinkled indifferently in the distance, offering no comfort, no answers. "Hello," he called softly, his voice almost lost in the wind. "Is someone there?" At first there was no reply. Then from beneath a bench coated in frost, a small figure moved. A girl, no older than 7, emerged from the shadows, her eyes wide, rimmed red from tears. In her arms she clutched a baby wrapped in a thin, faded blanket, his little face blotched with cold. A battered backpack sat at her feet, heavy with belongings too precious to abandon. The sight knocked the air from Alex's chest. He crouched down, ignoring the wet snow soaking through his tailored trousers. "Hey," he whispered gently, as though speaking too loud might break her completely. "It is okay. I am not going to hurt anyone. My name is Alex. What is yours?" The girl tightened her hold on the baby, her lips trembling as she searched his face for signs of danger. "Maddie," she whispered finally, her voice cracked like thin ice. "That is Tyler." Alex forced a smile, steady and warm. "You are safe now, Maddie, I promise." But her eyes darted past him, scanning the darkness. Her next words chilled him more than the wind ever could. "Do not let him find us. He said he would hurt us if we ran. He hurt my mom." For a moment, Alex felt paralyzed, rage and sorrow battling in his chest. He had been powerful in conference rooms, intimidating in negotiations, decisive when millions were at stake. Yet nothing had ever made him feel as helpless as that little voice did now. Without a second thought, he slipped off his expensive coat and wrapped it around both children. "You are not alone anymore," he said, his voice low but firm. "Not tonight, not while I am here." Maddie trembled so hard he could feel it through the thick wool. Tyler whimpered, burrowing deeper into her chest, his tiny hands clutching fabric for warmth. Alex lifted the boy carefully, surprised at how light he was, as though life itself had been draining away from him. Maddie rose slowly, clutching the backpack as though it held the last pieces of her world. Alex guided them to his SUV, his breath clouding the air as he buckled them into the back seat. His hands shook, not from cold but from fear, fear that he was now tied to something bigger than himself, something fragile and dangerous. He glanced into the mirror and saw Maddie's wide eyes, full of both terror and hope, staring back at him. He wanted to believe his promise was enough, but a flicker of headlights across the snowy park told him otherwise. A car sat idling at the edge of the lot, windows black, engine humming. He could almost feel the weight of unseen eyes watching, waiting. And in the snow, half-buried footprints led away into the shadows. Whoever had been hunting Maddie and Tyler was not finished. Alex's pulse hammered. He tightened his grip on the steering wheel. "Do not worry," he whispered, though the words were more to himself than to them. "I am not leaving you. Not tonight. Not ever." The SUV rolled away from the lake, carrying with it 3 lives bound together by chance and a cry in the dark. Snow swirled around them like a curtain, muffling the world, hiding them for now. Yet Alex knew this was only the beginning. For the first time in years, his life had purpose. Protecting them was no longer a choice. It was the only thing that mattered. The diner smelled faintly of burnt coffee and cinnamon, the kind of place where time seemed to pause while the snowstorm outside raged on. Alex slid into a booth at the far corner, away from the windows, shielding the children from the curious glances of the few patrons scattered across the room. Maddie's small frame trembled against the oversized coat he had wrapped around her, and Tyler whimpered softly, his tiny face flushed from cold and exhaustion. A waitress named Jean approached, her eyes sharp but kind. She studied the scene, the tired man in an expensive coat, the 2 children clinging to each other, and her expression softened. "Everything all right here?" she asked gently. Alex forced a smile he did not feel and nodded. "Hot chocolate for the kids, please, and whatever soup you have." He hesitated, then added, "Maybe something sweet." Within minutes, steam curled above mugs of cocoa crowned with whipped cream, and a slice of cherry pie sat on the table between them. Maddie eyed the food cautiously before breaking off a small piece and placing it in front of Tyler, tucking a napkin beneath his chin with the precision of someone far older than her years. Tyler grinned, smearing red filling across his cheeks, and for a fleeting moment the storm outside felt far away. But Maddie's eyes never truly rested. They flicked toward the windows, then back to the door, as if she expected the world to collapse at any second. Her hands shook when she reached into the battered backpack and pulled out a crumpled slip of paper. With trembling fingers, she pushed it across the table to Alex. He unfolded it carefully. The words scrawled in uneven script made his stomach twist. "Don't come home, he's here. Be brave. Love, Mom." The note carried more weight than any contract Alex had ever signed. Fear, love, and sacrifice pressed into those 7 words. He glanced at Maddie, whose jaw had tightened with a determination that looked too heavy for such a small child. "Where is your mom now?" he asked quietly. Maddie's eyes glistened but held steady. "She's at home with him. He gets mad when she cries. Sometimes he hurts her. Sometimes me too." Her voice cracked but did not falter. "She told me if something happened I should run to the lake and hide." Alex's chest tightened. He reached across the table slowly, careful not to startle her, and held out his hand. After a moment's hesitation, Maddie linked her pinky with his, a child's fragile oath that struck him harder than any promise ever had. He knew then that turning back was impossible. His empire, his business, his reputation, All of it faded beneath the fierce trust in that small gesture. As they finished the pie, the waitress returned with a bag of cookies for the road. Alex thanked her softly, aware of the weight of her kindness in such a dark moment. When they left the diner, snow still swirled under the glow of streetlights. Maddie's gaze darted suddenly toward the far side of the lot. A dark car idled with its lights off, its shadowed windows hiding whoever waited inside. Alex's instinct screamed. He tightened his grip on Maddie's shoulder. The car pulled away slowly, vanishing into the night, but the warning it left behind lingered like smoke. Back in the SUV, silence filled the air, heavy and fragile. Maddie held Tyler close, her eyes glistening in the dim light. Alex's pulse thundered as he drove toward the city. He had never felt so exposed, so utterly responsible. Yet when Maddie's small hand reached across the seat, clutching his sleeve, he knew he could not let go. They stopped outside a crumbling brick building, Maddie's home. The faint glow of a television flickered behind a curtain 3 floors up. The hallway reeked of old cooking oil and damp boots as they entered. Every light buzzed or flickered, casting uneasy shadows along the walls. Maddie pressed her ear to the apartment door and whispered, "He's gone." Inside, chaos reigned. A chair lay splintered on the floor, a teddy bear's stuffing spilled across the rug, and the air carried the sour stench of liquor. Maddie rushed to the back room, a cry tearing from her throat. "Mom!" Sarah lay on a thin mattress, her face swollen and bruised, lips cracked, breath shallow. She flinched at Maddie's touch before recognizing her daughter's voice. "Baby, I told you to hide." Tears streaked her cheeks as she gathered her children to her fragile frame. Alex knelt beside her. "I'm Alex Carter. I found Maddie and Tyler by the lake. You're safe now. No one is going to hurt you." But Sarah shook her head, her voice barely a whisper. "You don't know him. He never gives up." Her words sent a chill down Alex's spine, yet he held her trembling hand. For the first time in years, his wealth and power meant nothing. All that mattered was survival and the fragile hope in her battered eyes. When footsteps thundered in the hallway, Alex braced himself, but it was only a neighbor, breathless, holding a phone. "I called 911, she said. Minutes later, the apartment filled with paramedics and police. Maddie clung to Alex's coat, Tyler's tiny fist gripping his shirt. An officer produced a wallet and a photograph found near the back door. The wallet belonged to Ray Dalton, a man already known to the police. The photograph showed Maddie and Tyler, their faces smeared but unmistakable, with a threat scrawled below. "You'll never be safe. I always come back." Maddie's voice broke into a whisper as she pressed closer to Alex. "Don't let him take us." Alex swallowed the fear in his throat and forced steel into his voice. "Not a chance. You are safe with me." Sarah was carried out on a stretcher, her fingers brushing Maddie's hair. "Be brave, sweetheart. I'll see you soon." The children sobbed, clinging to Alex as the paramedics disappeared into the night. In the hospital waiting room, silence pressed heavily around them. Maddie leaned against Alex, her backpack clutched tight, Tyler asleep in her lap. Alex laid a steady hand over hers. For the first time since he had found them, she did not pull away. When a social worker approached, asking if he was family, Alex shook his head. "No," he said quietly, "but I am someone who will help." The woman studied him for a moment, then smiled gently. "That's enough for tonight." As dawn broke, Alex looked at the children curled against him, their breaths soft, fragile but alive. He realized his life had shifted. No meeting, no deal, no title could ever matter as much as keeping that promise to a child who had nothing else left. The shelter smelled faintly of old wood and warm bread, a fragile haven against the storm that had consumed their lives. For Maddie and Tyler it was not home, but it was safe enough for the night. Alex sat with them on a faded couch, Tyler asleep in his lap, Maddie pressed close but still watchful. Her eyes darted at every sound, every movement, as if fear had carved itself into her bones. Ms. Hinz, the woman who ran the place, reassured him. Sometimes just being here is what they need most, she said, her eyes both sharp and kind. Alex nodded, though inside he felt the crushing weight of a responsibility he had never asked for but could not abandon. The next morning, Alex tried to bring some light into Maddie's world. From the hospital gift shop, he had bought colored pencils. Handing them to her, he said softly, "Draw me your safe place." Maddie hesitated, suspicion flickering in her gaze before she slowly picked up a yellow pencil. On the paper, a house took shape, windows glowing bright, a blazing sun above. "If it is bright inside," she murmured, "it means you are safe. Mom used to say that." Alex felt his throat tighten. For the first time since the lake, Maddie gave him a small, shy smile, and in that fleeting moment he believed she might begin to trust again. Life in the shelter carried a rhythm of small routines. Tyler giggled chasing a toy truck across the floor, his joy contagious. Sarah, pale but recovering, returned from the hospital, her eyes soft with gratitude. She watched as Alex poured juice for the children, tied Maddie's shoelaces, and listened carefully to every word they spoke. One evening, as they sat eating spaghetti on paper plates, Sarah whispered, "You are good with them. I never expected anyone to stay." Alex looked down, embarrassed, but his answer was simple. "They make it easy." For the first time in years, Alex felt himself soften. He skipped conference calls, ignored the flood of business alerts on his phone, and instead learned to braid Maddie's hair by watching a tutorial, fumbling but determined. He laughed as Tyler smeared chocolate across his shirt. He listened to Sarah hum lullabies as Maddie drifted into sleep. Slowly, the man who had once measured life in stock prices began to measure it in the even breaths of two children who trusted him more with each passing day. But the shadow of Ray Dalton was never far. Sometimes it appeared in the form of a note left outside the shelter, scrawled words meant to wound. Sometimes it was the eerie silence of the night, broken only by the sense of being watched. One evening, Alex spotted a tall figure in a dark coat lingering near the broken streetlight outside. By the time security arrived, the man had vanished, leaving only footprints in the snow. Fear returned with a vengeance when Tyler was taken. One bitter afternoon, as Maddie pushed him on the swing under the watchful eyes of volunteers, the gate snapped open. A blur of movement, a dark coat, and Tyler was gone. Maddie's bracelet lay broken in the snow, threads frayed like her voice as she screamed. Panic roared through Alex as he held Maddie, her sobs shattering against his chest. The police arrived, their radios crackling with promises, but promises did little to ease the child's guilt. "He took him because of me," she whispered over and over, blaming herself as though her tiny hands could have stopped the storm. Alex tried to steady her. "None of this is your fault. Do you hear me?" But the words felt fragile, barely holding against the weight of her despair. Hours dragged into the night, the shelter hushed with fear. Sarah sat hollow-eyed, trembling with grief, while Maddie clung to Alex's sweater, her face pale and drawn. The police traced a lead. A bus driver had seen a man with a bundled child heading to the old warehouse district. Alex's heart clenched. He knew Ray would not give up. Before the police could move, Maddie slipped away. Driven by desperation, she left a note in shaky handwriting. "I am going to get Tyler. Do not let Mom be scared. I love you." Alex's blood ran cold as he read it. Grabbing his coat, he rushed into the night, calling her name through the labyrinth of crumbling alleys. He found her beneath the dim glow of a broken security light. Maddie's small frame stood trembling yet unyielding at the mouth of an alley. At the other end stood Ray Dalton, gaunt and wild, Tyler clutched in his arms. His voice was a ragged snarl. "Stay back, you took them from me. He is mine, he is all I have." Maddie's voice, though shaking, cut through the icy air. "I am not afraid of you anymore. You cannot hurt us. I want my brother back." Ray laughed, a broken sound, but Alex stepped forward, arms raised. "Ray, let him go. It is over. You do not want to do this." Police shadows closed in, but no one moved, the air frozen in a terrible stillness. Sarah's voice broke from behind Alex, desperate and pleading. "Please, Ray, just let him go. You do not have to do this." For a moment something flickered in Ray's eyes, anger, grief, regret, but then his shoulders slumped. Slowly, trembling, he set Tyler down. The boy stumbled into Maddie's arms and she clutched him fiercely, whispering, "I have got you. I have got you." The police surged forward, restraining Ray as he cursed and fought, his voice dissolving into the night. Sarah collapsed, sobbing as she gathered her children, pressing kisses to their heads. Alex fell to his knees, pulling them all close, his own tears falling freely. The storm that had haunted them had finally broken. Later, in the quiet of the shelter, Alex sat beside Maddie's bunk. Tyler slept in his arms, Sarah curled nearby, exhaustion written across her bruised face. Maddie looked up at him, her eyes still wet but clearer than they had been in weeks. "You did not leave," she whispered. "You stayed." Alex brushed her hair from her face, his voice thick. "I promised, did I not?" For the first time in years, Sarah allowed herself to believe in tomorrow. Maddie drifted into sleep, her hand still clutching her brother. Alex watched over them, the weight of fear lifting at last. Outside, snow fell softly, covering the scars of the night. Inside, three fragile souls leaned into each other, no longer alone. The storm had not only ended, it had given birth to something new. Alex, once a man defined by wealth and emptiness, had found family in the most unexpected place. And as he closed his eyes, he knew one truth with absolute certainty. He would never let fear write their story again. There are stories that fade as soon as they are told, and there are stories that take root, echoing long after the final words. This was one of those stories. A little girl's broken plea in the cold night changed everything, not just for her and her brother, but for the man who stopped to listen. Alex Carter had spent years surrounded by noise, business meetings, financial reports, flashing headlines, but nothing pierced him as deeply as the sound of Maddie's voice trembling in the snow. From that moment on, the world shifted. What began as an act of compassion became a vow. He was no longer a bystander to someone else's suffering. He became a shield, a presence that refused to walk away when it mattered most. Maddie and Tyler did not only survive because Alex stayed. Alex himself was reborn in their trust, in their fragile hope that someone somewhere would not fail them. Sarah's journey, too, is one that resonates beyond this single night. She endured, she protected, she loved her children fiercely even in the darkest of hours. Her whispered words, "Be brave," were more than a mother's plea. They were a torch passed into Maddie's small hands, a reminder that even in the storm, courage could burn bright. And Maddie proved that courage. Standing before the man who had haunted their lives, she found her voice. She demanded freedom. And with that voice, she opened the door to a future that no longer belonged to fear. This story is not only about survival, it is about transformation. A millionaire discovered that true wealth is measured not in dollars, but in the quiet trust of a child resting without fear for the first time. A battered family discovered that love, once fractured, could knit itself back together in unexpected ways. And all of us are reminded that kindness, when it shows up at the right moment, can change the trajectory of a life. Perhaps you see yourself in Alex, someone who has everything yet longs for meaning. Or maybe you see yourself in Sarah, fighting battles you did not choose, carrying scars the world cannot always see. Or maybe you are Maddie, holding onto hope with trembling hands but refusing to let it slip away. Whoever you are, know this. Second chances are real. Love is stronger than fear, and sometimes the smallest act of listening can save a life. If this story touched your heart, let it be more than just a passing moment. Here at Hidden Echo Stories, we believe in honoring these echoes, the whispers of resilience, the cries for compassion, the laughter that returns after the storm. Every story we share is a reminder that even in the darkest nights, light can be found. So if you believe in the healing power of love, if you believe in second chances, and if you want to carry these echoes with you, we invite you to stay. Subscribe to Hidden Echo Stories, turn on notifications, and let the next story find its way into your heart. Because sometimes, the story you hear is not just about someone else. It is the story you have been waiting to remember for yourself.